Hello there. You're listening to Manufacturing Tomorrow, brought to you by the Ohio Manufacturing Institute at The Ohio State University, where we discuss the latest innovations, challenges, and advancements shaping the world of manufacturing. I'm your host, Katherine Kelly. Today, we are excited to speak with Rick Kaun, Global Director of Cybersecurity Services at Rockwell Automation, one of the world's largest industrial automation and digital transformation companies. With deep expertise in industrial cybersecurity, Rick advises manufacturers on how to protect operational technology, or OT, environments in an era of increasing connectivity and escalated cyber threats. Rick brings more than 20 years of experience designing and implementing OT security programs with clients spanning oil and gas refining, mining, power, and manufacturing industries. Before joining Rockwell, he served as VP of Solutions at Verve Industrial Protection, where he led development of an OT cybersecurity platform, and earlier as Global Business Manager for Industrial IT Solutions at Honeywell. Rick, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to work with you and to talk about my favorite topic. So thank you for having me.
All right. You've spent a large chunk of your professional life at the intersection of industrial operations and cybersecurity. What drew
hmm
you into operational technology security, and how has the field changed during your career?
A great couple of questions. So it was a little bit just fortune that I was at an emerging entrepreneurial company that was selling like OPC drivers and lube tuning and process improvement, and I kind of had a knack for the IT side of things, and so the CEO said, "I think we should start selling this as an accompaniment to what we're doing in these places." And so I said, "I'd love to take a try at it." So we grew a business, and Honeywell took notice, and suddenly we're on a bigger stage. And real big for me early in the career didn't quite work, so I went back to another entrepreneurial to try and grow it. And now here we are at Rockwell. So it was a lot of fun to get into it. And as far as what's changed, it's funny. I joke that I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and in fact, I keep saying the same things for 26 years, and people still write it down. So we got a lot of education to go, but that is because different corners and nooks and crannies and scenarios are now catching up, quite frankly. But there has been significant growth and awareness in the majority. Like I think we're in the middle of the bell curve or so, or even beyond that now to getting people to learn it. There's still a long way to go. There's a lot of very rudimentary programs and thought processes out there, but generally more and more organizations are starting to embrace it as hopefully more so as a culture than just a technical checklist, because there's some peril in thinking it's just a line item. It's actually a culture. It's a philosophy. It's an ethos. And the more we do that, the better success we'll have.
For our listeners who run manufacturing operations, can you explain why cybersecurity for operational technology is a fundamentally different problem than protecting a front office IT network? I mean, what's at stake if manufacturers treat them the same way?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic question. And the single biggest issue. It's easy. You look at an IT world, and they've got essentially switches, firewalls, routers, connectivity sort of things, and then they've got the servers and desktops, et cetera, that work on them. Fantastic. In OT, those are obviously present, but they are also sometimes antiquated. Sometimes the Windows, they're not all Windows 11 and patched on Tuesdays. Sometimes we still see Windows 98 and Windows XP and stuff that's running critical components. But the real big one is what I call the third rail, if you will, and that is all of the control equipment, the PLCs, the relays, the VFDs, all the components that actually spin the equipment, run the machines, pack the product, et cetera. And those are things that can have material impacts. They can also have safety impacts and potentially, safety to humans. And so it's a really big different world. And I always say, when I have an audience of IT and OT, we can get OT to an IT pedigree for security. We just have to be allowed to use different tools and a different pace, because we have to accommodate all those differences on the OT side that are baked in. Forklifting an old Windows box might be millions of dollars in equipment changeout, which is not trivial and is unfortunately not borne out by the economics. So we have to find a way to be creative.
You use the term Frankenstein to describe industrial systems that combine that decades-old equipment alongside newer connected systems, often from multiple vendors. I had someone who's has invested in new technologies. One of my favorite manufacturers, Mike Garvey from M7, and he was walking me through the plant floor and he says, "Look, I even have a combination of the Jetsons and the Flintstones on my shop floor."
Yeah,
So,
I
so
like that
what does
one.
that so what does that look like on the platform? Why does it create such dangerous security blind spots?
Well, okay. So the reason that happens is exactly as you mentioned. We can be starting, we often see a process and a line that at the end somebody goes, well, this product could be made better if at the end of this we did either this byproduct this way or something different that way, either by packaging size, extra flavor, send the crackers back in to get rebaked and call them extra crunchy, whatever. And so you add equipment on the back end of that sometimes. In other cases, you're building something new and someone like Rockwell has something for it, but that really unique or niche thing over there, it needs someone else and the innovative. And so to get where we need to get, we start putting things together. And then of course there's acquisitions and buying new plants, because it's not just within a facility, it's within the remit of organizations that have more than one facility. They grow new things, it's a newer technology, or it's an acquisition that started with a different vendor. And at the end of the day, you've got all of it. Now, diversity in and of itself isn't the security gap or the blind spot. The blind spot is, again, back to the ethos and the philosophy of security. We have to take the mindset, both we, the manufacturers, and we, those that pertain or pretend to want to offer solutions, to help them with every single spinning equipment, every single IP address, not just our nameplate, right? There are many vendors who will say territorially, you cannot put this anything other than what we bless on this machine. And that's not from a security or safety perspective, that's from a territorial perspective. We have technologies that are proven. Rockwell, third party, there's 5,000 products on the market. Many of them can go across vendor, but it's the vendors and potentially the plant managers that are stuck with their support models and their affinity for certain vendors that sort of block innovative or all-inclusive approaches. And that's where the blind spots come in, right? If we're only using vendor ABC for ABC equipment, that's great. But what about the other 70% of the facility? Are using 70% more different tools, like 3 of the same? I saw a power plant once, had 8 different patching tools. How is anyone going to be an expert on 8 different tools of the exact same function and which part of the facility they're supposed to be in? That's where the security risk comes in.
Rockwell is, of course, a major automation vendor, so it's notable that you advocate for a vendor-neutral approach to securing industrial environments. Why does a vendor-neutral posture matter, and how do you make that case to a customer who assumes, as you said, I think you alluded to this, an automation vendor is also their security vendor?
Yeah, that's a great question. What we typically point out is a couple things. Rockwell is always in the market, and again, I've been in it for 20-some, almost 30 years, has always kind of been the one that's the least territorial or the least vendor only and only our stuff. I mean, we incorporate other, PLCs into our factory talk and into our supportability, et cetera. But I hear that concern. What we do is we blend, people, process, and technology in our offerings. And we would be happy to walk beside a client and say, you know what, let's do this design, let's put it out there. And if you want an independent third party to check our homework, that's great. I think that's a very good practice. What we want to do, though, is help that client understand that this is a step or a phase as part of a bigger program. So happy to have different tools and people and perspectives in along the way, as long as we collectively build their program in an automated fashion towards the future and always able to evolve, then we're doing the right things, right? The reason it's a necessity is if you truly want to understand what to do in a production environment when there's a significant risk, you need to understand a very deep manufacturing understanding of the process, of the equipment, of even the product in many cases. You look at dairy and the temperature change or how long it sits and it's a different product at the end or tastes different. Pharmaceutical, if it goes out of spec for a short period of time, they have to throw the batch out, right? So you need to understand manufacturing and you need to understand security. So, I used to work for niche companies that we weren't tied to a vendor and we could come in and be neutral, but they're not enough volume. And at the end of the day, some of our larger clients have multiple sites. Something goes wrong, they need boots on the ground in that region that understand their spinning equipment and can ride up to the facility and help immediately. So you kind of have to have some manufacturing in there.
Tell us about Rockwell's SecureOT platform and what you mean by a programmatic approach to OT cybersecurity. I mean, what does that look like in practice for a mid-sized manufacturer who's never had a formal OT security program?
Yeah, I love it. This is where we see the future going. Many organizations, small, medium, large, old, young, advanced, been doing it for years, just getting into it, often made the mistake of saying, I have a symptom, I'm going to treat it, right? I need an inventory tool or I need to patch, I need to understand my vulns. They're not looking at the underlying, I don't say disease because it's not a disease, but you understand my point is it's about a larger problem. We don't want to just treat the symptom. And so holistic means we need to understand not only the entirety of what we're up against, but we need to understand the context of the individual assets. At a mining client the other day, get told by IT, you have a vulnerability, it's deemed critical, corporate says you have to deal with it right now. They started to plan an outage until somebody ran down where that device was and found out it was just a printer. They can unplug it and use the other one. It's context, right? Like a list of 10,000 vulnerabilities is useless, but understanding the vulnerability relative to the asset, what its function is, what its revenue generation is, what it's related to safety, what your compensating controls or alternate plans might be. Now we've got, to your point, a holistic approach, both reactive as vulns come out and proactive in terms of, hey, we continue to struggle at this site. We probably should look at maybe upgrading our backup or restoration restore points, or hey, we really have a lot of secure remote or insecure remote access people coming in to augment our manufacturing. We should prioritize that. So it comes down to the SecureOT platform's philosophy, which is let's get the assets, but then let's get the context of them. Let's get external indicators of risk, obsolescence, patches missing, vulnerabilities present. Which of those are being exploited actively? What do we have for compensating controls? Is our ladder logic checked into factory talk, for example? That context allows clients to right size their response. Today, we're going to patch. Tomorrow, we're going to design our segmentation better. Next month, we're going to present to the board some obsolescence and some capital planning. It's multifaceted, proactive, reactive, long-term, big picture looking. That's what SecureOT funnels and feeds, and that's the only really to stay ahead of it.
I'm going to ask you to react to one of your quotes. Any fool can buy a tool. The value comes down to people, process, and technology. What
Yep.
does that mean operationally for a manufacturer trying to build a security program? And where do most companies stumble? I think you've already alluded to that earlier.
A little bit, but let me double down. I appreciate you pulling that forward. And I said that a few times every time I preface it with, I don't think I'm supposed to say this, and here we are. This is why the HR and PR said, don't say that. Anyways, um, you're absolutely right. Any fool can buy a tool, and it's in line with what I just said. That it's not the symptom; it's the underlying issue and the challenge. And so, what I think vendors need to realize is that when they want to buy something, they need to realize how does it fit in not only to today but down the road. I'll give you a super quick example. If I want an inventory, don't my God, please don't just accept something that's quote unquote good enough, because today it will give you 80 or 90% of what you need to see. And it's going to verify what you suspected. But when you need to get to that extra 10% in the final finish line or future challenges, that good enough inventory is going to fail you, right? Like you get to disaster recovery. Do you know which systems are highest impact and need a daily offsite backup, right? So it really look towards the future. What is this part of in the bigger picture? But secondly, make sure you budget maintenance. Make sure you budget someone to own it and use the tool and interpret what's coming out of it. Otherwise, the tool is just a tool. It's never going to go. I mean, I bought a treadmill and it's sitting there collecting dust, right? Like it's a great idea, but unless I embrace it, I'm not going to get any value from it.
You stole my analogy. That's what I use is someone being pressured to buy that treadmill for the new
Yep,
year, and then it becomes a glorified coat hanger.
exactly. Yep, that's
Yep.
the risk. Yep,
Mhm.
100%.
As manufacturers connect more of their plant floor to enterprise systems and the cloud, ERPs, the IT and the OT worlds are colliding. What are the biggest organizational and cultural obstacles to bridging that divide? I mean, what does a successful IT OT security collaboration actually look like?
Yeah, that's a real hard one for many. IT means well and is very capable and talented, but sometimes what they want to do doesn't make practical sense. Simple things like, Active Directory hardening or turning on, banner logons for critical systems. Well, on a pipeline at unmanned stations, if you make somebody have to hit I accept on the warning, that machine doesn't get turned on until somebody actually goes physically to that place, right? So there needs to be a shared understanding at the top what the objective is. There needs to be a shared understanding of who does what, when, and where. And this is why Rockwell loves the SecureOT platform, as do many of our uh, end users, but also many emerging consultants and partners, is when we turn on all that data with all that context, we can see how big the problem is. And we can see which manufacturer, which production line, which process it is. We can call in our experts from vendor A or X or Y, and we can collectively decide what is the risk reward balance here. If we don't have that dynamic and have that discussion, understand, well, we need to pull data out for a digital enhancement project. Okay, well, we probably need the network segmentation and secure remote access figured before we do that. And let's duplicate the data out in the DMZ so that external people aren't coming actually into operations. These are all things that are really easily solvable if all the people are at the same planning table. It's when somebody plans and tries to show up and shove it down someone's throat that you get the churn and the dissonance. So it's contextual knowledge that drives collaborative discussion. Sounds really cheesy, but that's really what it is.
And my last question is a bit of advice for the road. If a small or mid-sized Ohio manufacturer is listening to this right now, they know they have cybersecurity gaps, they don't have a dedicated security team, and they're not sure where to start. What's your most practical advice for taking the first step?
I would highly recommend that they educate a little bit on some of the components and contents around building a program and what the bigger picture are. I would even more so recommend that they partner with someone. Don't just select vendors. Don't just hire somebody and say, go build it from scratch. You need to have a partner. And like I said, we've had many manufacturers in that area come and say, we could just buy vendors and have a bunch of tools on the shelf, like those 55 tools at the power plant, 8 of which were patching tools, or we could have a partner that helps us and understands manufacturing and security, et cetera. That's why I'm so excited about what Rockwell's doing and the rebrand of the SecureOT platform and the SecureOT brand. It's a little bit of a not just screaming Rockwell because we want to help people and have them understand we don't just have to look at Rockwell, we want to help you with it. We're the single biggest collection of manufacturing, digital, and cyber under one roof. And that's the sort of thing that can help you whether you're at the first stage, second stage, third stage. Security is a journey and your maturity is going to evolve over time and you're going to need different things at different stages. If you don't treat it as a program and find partners that will help you along the way, you will be stuck with just vendors and point solutions and a challenge to get value out of them. There's lots of really cool managed service capabilities, both from Rockwell and others. There's lots of boutique firms that will help build you a plan. You can go and execute it with a vendor like Rockwell or others. But it's make sure you have a plan. Make sure you find a partner that you trust that can help you with all of the stages, not just individual components. And also educate the board. We still see oil and gas companies with 150 people in IT and one person in OT, and it's the OT side that makes all the money, that pays all the checks. And I get IP and corporate espionage and all that stuff, but we really need to invest in OT.
Thank you, Rick, for joining us. This was really informative and quotable.
Like the last one. Thank you.
Thanks.